He's heard it all before. You're a pastor. You're not supposed to get political. You shouldn't be talking about these issues, so just stay out of politics and stick to preaching the gospel. Life, marriage, sexuality, borders, ethnicity. These things aren't political. They're biblical. God's word has much to say about the culture we're living in. This is Our Watch with Tim Thompson.
How's everybody doing? Welcome to Wednesday Night Live right here, Our Watch with Tim Thompson. So glad you guys are with us. Can you guys hear me? I'm on here. There we go. Welcome. Wouldn't be a good night unless we had some technical difficulties. I always know, like, when God's going to move and do something awesome, Satan always tries to mix up what we're doing. So I'm glad to be here with you guys tonight. Welcome to Our Watch with Tim Thompson. I'm here with my co-host tonight, Jake Porter, who is the youth pastor at 412 Church in Temecula Valley. Jake, always good to have you here.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. Looking forward to it.
You know, I don't know if you guys know this or not. I hope you guys know. Every Sunday morning, Pastor Jake and I have a radio program on AM 590, The Answer, and it is I think it's a really cool thing. I know that a lot of people aren't doing what we're doing, but to have a youth pastor on with the senior pastor talking about the issues in our culture, we talk about all sorts of stuff, right?
Yeah, anything and everything. So what we're talking about here, what we're talking about upstairs, we're putting out on the radio, and we've got a lot of cool responses. People have tuned in and kind of let us know what they're getting out of it, and it's been positive so far, so I'm happy about that. But if you know anybody looking to hear some truth when there's not a whole lot of it out there, then have them tune in.
Yeah, so that's every Sunday morning, 9 a.m., AM 590, The Answer. One of the cool things that we got going on at the church that we're both pastors at, so for those of you that are watching online, Our Watch with Tim Thompson, we're at 412 Church in Temecula Valley. Our Watch is a separate ministry from the church. So the church that we're in, we're pastors here at the church, and Jake will teach upstairs. He'll teach the youth, the junior hires and high schoolers, and the points that he teaches upstairs, I'm teaching the same points down here to the adults. And we did that very deliberately because we want to make sure that families after church are having good conversations, not getting away with what we got away with, right?
Yeah. Where your parents ask you, "Oh, what'd you learn today?" I don't know. I don't remember.
That's what I used to
say.
I
don't know. We played a game, and I don't remember what we talked about.
Right. So we want to make sure that families actually have something to discuss in the Word of God afterwards. And now none of you can get away with that on Sunday morning saying you don't know because your parents know what you learned. But yeah, I think you guys can admit this. You have a pretty awesome youth pastor, don't you? We're real excited about what we've got going on as a church family, and we're excited about what God's doing through Our Watch, and tonight is no exception. We're real excited about our guest. You want to introduce our guest up?
Sure. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. He's somebody that has spent a lot of time with youth, and I know they're going to benefit a lot from it, as will you guys. But our guest this evening is the host of Frontlines with Drew Hernandez. He's an investigative reporter, a commentator, and a Turning Point USA contributor. So if you guys would join me in welcoming up Drew Hernandez.
You're in the hot seat here, Drew.
In the hot seat.
All right.
Hi, guys.
I'm excited to have you on the program tonight and be able to get to know you better. We've got a lot of mutual friends, and I think I could speak for most of us in this room and most people watching online. We're very grateful for the work that you do and the work that God's doing in you and through you. And why don't you just start by letting us know a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I currently work for Turning Point USA. I'm the host of Frontlines. It's a daily news show where I'm just breaking down the controversial headlines with truth every single day. It's on YouTube. And also, like they said, I'm an investigative reporter. I covered the 2020 riots undercover, did a lot of extensive work embedding with Antifa and Black Lives Matter. I've received multiple death threats. But God is good, and He's greater. And so that's kind of like the body of my work. I was a youth pastor for about 5 years before I got into kind of engaging the mainstream media as an independent reporter and kind of unmasking a lot of their lies, especially during 2020, during the pandemic and the race riots that were taking place across the United States of America. And that's kind of where I'm at now, and here I am hanging out with you guys.
You're married?
I am married. My lovely wife, she's watching right now. I love her, and by the way, I love that song, Sinking Deep. I actually asked her to marry me while that song was being played, so
Awesome.
close to my heart.
How did you get into, just briefly, because I have very specific things I want to ask you about the Kyle Rittenhouse case, but how did you get into doing what you're doing?
Yeah, so I never had any plans or intentions of becoming a reporter. I don't think anybody, I'm just being honest here. Growing up as a kid, I watched Ninja Turtles and I loved April. She was an awesome reporter, but I never had a intention or didn't go to school, didn't go to college, didn't have any desire. I thought the Lord was leading me in one direction, to be a youth pastor and then eventually transition into full-time ministry. But the Lord redirected me entirely in 2020 when I saw the race riots come out with Antifa and BLM. They were not protests, they were riots. I started to see the mainstream media begin to lie. I saw them begin to come out and say on CNN and MSNBC that they're fiery but mostly peaceful protests when they're standing in front of burning buildings. So I was currently living in Chino, California when that was all happening, and they were rioting in Beverly Hills. They were rioting and looting in Santa Monica, if you guys remember. They were just tearing up everything in the name of George Floyd, a fentanyl addict that got himself killed, in my personal opinion. So I decided to go down there and cover those riots because the mainstream media was lying to the people during 2020, during the pandemic, and I just kind of fell into it. I started documenting what was happening on the ground. I took to Twitter, I took to social media. As a Christian, I believe that I am called to expose darkness, not partake in it, but when I see it, I have to call it out for what it is. And for whatever reason, God put me in this position to be able to literally expose some demonic things taking place in our mainstream media. Some of the things that I've seen, you guys, would shock you, that is fed to you through your TV, even on Fox. A lot of it is engineered. It's narrative-driven. It's money-driven. It's to get you to believe a certain narrative that's not actually true. It doesn't only happen on CNN. I'm just going to be honest. It happens on both sides. Even Sean Hannity the other day literally sourced a very violent Antifa member named Chad Loader. This is the kind of stuff that's happening, okay? And the reason why I've engaged this way is because I want people to understand and see the truth for what it really is. And people ask me, like, did you want to get involved with journalism and reporting? And my answer is, the Lord directed my steps into this, and that's all I can say. Literally, it's the truth.
So you started doing what you're doing, and I think really high-profile thing that ended up bringing you into, of course, was the Kyle Rittenhouse case.
Yeah.
And you testified there. I want to show a brief clip of you testifying, and then I want to ask you a bunch of questions about it. So take a look at this.
Your videos that you have captured of these incidents that you call riots, they're very slanted against the people who are rioting. You characterize them as Antifa, Black Lives Matter rioters, correct?
Because they are rioting in the footage, yes, absolutely.
That's like one of those mic drop moments.
Yeah, this is the truth.
How many of you watched that online? Well, I was telling him I was watching it too. I mean, I had that trial on just in the background as I was doing other work, purely for entertainment value. In some cases, to listen to that attorney that was, he wasn't even questioning him. He was it was like you were on trial. It was weird to watch. And in my opinion, I mean, that attorney, he was a buffoon. in my opinion. I mean, how did you feel sitting there listening to the line of questioning that was brought your way?
Well, here's the thing. So I knew they were both reaching out to me. It was the defense and the prosecution. So that attorney was literally trying to get a hold of me because he knew how much footage I had on the ground when those riots were taking place. So both sides wanted to utilize me because they thought that I would have something that would work against Kyle or indict Kyle. But then he began to realize when I started to send him my footage that Kyle was innocent. And that attorney knew that. So when I went in there, he knew that I was an enemy because I had the truth on my side and I had extensive video evidence, literally more than 100 videos of that entire night documenting just exactly what happened that night. So for me walking into that, my wife will tell you, I didn't really want to get involved. I didn't, because I don't know Kyle. I don't have any interest. I don't want to be famous. I didn't care about any of that. I actually wanted to stay out of it. But as the trial went on and I started to see how many lies began to accumulate, that this kid was about to lose his life, and I was telling your guys as pastors in the room earlier that as a youth pastor, I looked at Kyle as one of my own kids. Like, this could literally be one of my kids in my youth group. Not like I'm not the parent, but that's how I viewed this young man that defended himself from a convicted pedophile that was chasing him in the middle of a riot, trying to take his AR from him. God knows what would have happened to him if he got it. But that's how I viewed this, and it became more of a conviction for me because I was afraid of getting in there. I'm no lawyer. I'm not an attorney. I'm not experienced in law or how the court system works or anything like that. So I didn't want to go in there and say the wrong thing and indict Kyle or make it easier for them. I hope you guys understand what I'm saying, right? I don't want to get in there and make things worse. So that was my main concern and my main fear, but my wife was like, you are probably the only person on planet Earth right now that can go there, get on a plane, go there, give the jury your footage, give your eyewitness testimony under oath, and help this kid right now because they are lying. They are lying about him and they're trying to put him away for the rest of his life. So that convicted me, I'm just being honest. It became an issue of conviction where I don't think I could live the rest of my life as a Christian knowing that I had something that could have saved someone from these evil, satanic, demonic lies and just go on living my life while this kid lives in a freaking jail cell for the rest of his life. I did not want that on my conscience as a Christian for this kid. His mother was broken. She's such a sweet lady, Kyle's mom. And I would look at her on TV, and then I would look at her when I actually went down to Kenosha, and I would see her just broken, and it was real. It was so real, and I just knew as a Christian I had a duty to go there and testify to the truth.
And I know Kyle appreciates that.
Yeah, he does.
But we appreciate
I told that
it.
kid, you better cure cancer or something, dude, because I did. I was like, dude, a lot of people have put their lives, their careers on the line for you, man, and I'm just saying you better do something with your life.
Yeah. Not everybody here or our audience online might not know even what we're talking about. Like, what happened that night? Just briefly, if you would.
Yeah, real quick. So, a riot broke out in 2020 in Kenosha, this little town. No one ever thought it would happen on a Sunday night because a black man named Jacob Blake got shot by police because he got himself shot because he decided to disobey police orders. Became a violent threat, so the police decided to take him down. He didn't die, though. So a riot broke out because of that on a Sunday night. I was there on the scene the first night. They were burning down buildings, committing arson. They were looting. I watched these people, Black Lives Matter and Antifa, destroy this little town, okay? They did it the second night, the same thing. Burnt down buildings, burnt down multiple car dealerships, all the cars. And if you guys think I'm exaggerating, just go to my Twitter, Drew H. Live, do an advanced search, go to 2020 of August, and you will see it all, okay? Millions of views. People know that this actually happened, but they still tried to call them freaking protests. Yeah. So the third night, that's when Kyle showed up. And Kyle showed up on the third night of rioting. He had his AR-15. He was not there to shoot black people. That's what the mainstream media literally said Kyle came down to do. He came down to Kenosha to shoot black people. Kyle did not shoot one black person that night. No. Lies. Kyle was going up and down the street. The rioters, Antifa, Black Lives Matter were rioting this entire night. Kyle was there just to provide medical aid for both sides. He said that during the trial. He testified under oath. I was there to provide medical aid for anybody that was there, okay? And my rifle I had was to protect myself because people are committing arson. They threw a brick at a police officer's head. Is that protesting to anybody in this room? No, okay? So this is what these people, they were violent criminals, evil, committing arson, looting, very dangerous people. And so this particular night, the rioters were rioting, the police were pushing them back down the street, and then we came back down to this one area where Joseph Rosenbaum, he's this convicted pedophile that was chasing Kyle Rittenhouse, they decided to light a dumpster on fire, and they were going to push it into police officers while they're in their squad cars, okay? Literally a bomb to kill police officers. And so someone decided to put out the fire with a fire extinguisher, so this made the rioters lose their minds. So they decided to go and burn down another car dealership down the street because they were triggered and pissed off that someone put out their trash can that they couldn't push into literal automobiles with humans in them. So they decided to go down the street. They were going to burn down another car dealership. So Kyle decided to run down the street. He was going to go down there to hopefully try and keep the peace and show up with a gun to hopefully they will go away. They'll see a gun and maybe they won't burn down a third car dealership, third consecutive night. As Kyle was down there, a convicted pedophile by the name of Joseph Rosenbaum targeted him, began to chase him and run him down in front of the car dealership, and he ran behind him, attempted to grab his gun, lunge at him. Kyle turned around in self-defense, and he fired, and he killed that guy. Yes.
I love how there's like this moment, like, am I allowed to
You
clap at
absolutely
this?
are. I would expect every single person in this room to do the exact same thing in self-defense, especially a minor. And you might be able to argue, why was Kyle there in the first place? I think that's a conversation you have to have with his mother. Okay?
My question is, where were all the other men?
Yeah,
in
exactly.
the community? That's
but
what my
that's
question
what
is.
led to this
So,
whole thing.
Yeah.
And there were multiple, even after that, when Kyle took down the first individual that was trying to take his gun. Is there, like, imagine a convicted pedophile trying to get a hold of you and your gun. What are you supposed to do? Kyle didn't know this at the time, but that's what it was. And after he defended himself and took down this first individual, he started to go down the same street, and he was going to turn himself into the police. And as he was going to turn himself into the police, two other psychopaths began to run after him, smacked him in the back of the head or attempted to smack him in the back of the head with a skateboard. Another individual pulled a pistol on him. Kyle fired again, shot one of the other individuals, literally blew the forearm off the individual that was going to point a pistol at him and shoot him and kill him. It's like, what are you, in the middle of going to turn yourself into the police? So this is what led to the case.
Yeah. And you know, we look at across America, there were people watching this that when he was acquitted, they were like me. They were screaming in their living room for joy. Like, yes, finally there is some true justice. This is justice that he was let go, that he wasn't convicted of doing something wrong. And you look at how he defended himself, and we're losing that ability worldwide. We're losing it in Canada right now. You look at what's happening in Canada. How many of you saw what Justin Trudeau did recently? Let me show you. The ones who didn't see it, check this out.
We're introducing legislation to implement a national freeze on handgun ownership. What this means is that it will no longer be possible to buy, sell, transfer, or import handguns anywhere in Canada. In other words, we're capping the market for handguns. We're also fighting gun smuggling and trafficking by increasing maximum criminal penalties and providing more tools for law enforcement to investigate firearm crimes. And we'll require the permanent alteration of long gun magazines so they can never hold more than 5 rounds.
Now, you got to wonder, how come there's so many people that actually buy into that line of thinking that this is good for a nation? Because it is not good for a nation. You know, we had, a couple years ago, we had a Holocaust survivor at our church, and listening to her testimony was incredible. And she talked about what happened to her. She ended up at Dachau, and she went through hell. She went through hell. And she said what happened was, before they came and took her and her family away, they took their guns. And then when the soldiers came, they couldn't defend themselves. And what are we seeing happen right now? We're seeing a massive push to take away our firearms. And it's exactly, Edmund Burke said, if you don't study history, you're doomed to repeat it. We're seeing people who don't know their history. I want to veer away from the Kyle Rittenhouse trial for a moment. I want to talk to you a little bit more about your faith. So you got saved at a church that's a friend of mine, Jack Hibbs. Mm-hmm. Tell us about you getting saved.
The short version, I grew up, around religion, Mormonism, a little bit of Catholicism, had an understanding of Jesus, that he's a good guy, that, God is good, and I should look up to God, and, I should probably live a good life, and I should probably do the best that I can, but never really had a real encounter with the gospel, never had a real understanding of what the gospel meant, never had a real understanding of what the gospel really means to me personally. Never actually really heard it clear as well. So in 2012, I was going through a lot. My parents had their own issues and split throughout high school, and I was searching for identity, searching for meaning, searching for a place to fit in, searching for a place to, just be in life, especially as a young kid going through high school. And I remember, I was in a really bad relationship, and it kind of drove me into this position where, girl cheated on me, same story, just went to my head, had this obsession and desire to be famous and well-known. I wanted to be a musician, wanted to be the next Kanye and the whole thing. I was obsessed with the Illuminati on YouTube religiously every single day, studying Satanism and the occult and how the Illuminati functions and how people just somehow, some way become famous like that overnight, over nothing. You would watch interviews with Jay-Z, you would watch interviews with Kanye West, you'd watch interviews with Beyonce, you'd watch interviews with all these people, Nicki Minaj, that come out and say, I become a different person on stage. There's something in me that activates that's not me. I'm not me when I'm on stage. I'm like, how are these people getting energized? How are these people becoming so successful? And there's something spiritual going on behind them and in them. How does that happen? I want that. I want that now, especially to prove to my ex-girlfriend that I'm better than her and the guy she's with now, right? And I remember I hated my life. I suffered from demonic oppression. I mean, my mom is here tonight. She'll tell you it was bad. It was bad. Just suffering from demons attacking me in my sleep. And it got bad when these demons were jumping off the wall and choking me wide awake, not doing drugs, not drinking, having these demonic manifestations visit me. I mean, there was a period of my life where for about a year straight, I was tormented by this spirit every single night. And my mom will tell you, I would tell my mom, I'm afraid to go to sleep. She knows. It's like a 21-year-old kid afraid to go to bed because I know there's a demon waiting for me at night that's going to torment me beyond belief. And it would never go away. The pain would never go away. The pain from my parents splitting, the pain from past relationships hurting me, the pain from, not being successful in school, the pain from everything in life would never go away. I would cry out to God, and I would say, God, please take this away. Please take this away. I know that Jesus, I know that God is greater, but it would never go away. It would never go away, ever. I would cry out to Jesus. I would cry out to God, and I would ask God to take these demons, take them away. Like, I don't know where this is coming from. I'm such a helpless thing. There's something supernatural just tormenting my mind and my body, and I can't explain it to you. It is like humiliating. It's humiliating. When you start dabbing into the occult and Satanism and demons start visiting you and it's out of your control and there's nothing you can do to get rid of it, you will learn very soon that you need God and you need Him now. So I came to this place where I would cry out to God and it wouldn't go away. It would get worse. It would get worse and worse and worse, cry out to Jesus, and it wouldn't go away. And I started to blame Him, like, F you, I hate you, like I've always come to you, and life just gets worse, and you're not what they say you are, you're not who you say you are, you don't help anybody, you don't want to help me, obviously. I was a bad kid, dude. My mom will tell you. She's sitting right here. I'm not lying. I'm saying this in front of my mom, okay? She will tell you. I was a freaking bad kid. You think you kids in youth group are bad kids? Let's have a conversation. Okay?
We know. We got good kids in our youth group.
No, like...
They're awesome.
I know, man.
I think they're pretty good.
But it came to this point where I remember sitting in my room and nothing was changing. Life wasn't getting any better. Getting into car accidents, and just the depression was worse. The oppression was worse. And I remember sitting in my room and I wanted to be famous. And I'll never forget it. Sitting in my room and I was like yelling at God saying, I hate you. I hate you. I want nothing to do with you. Like I see these people in the mainstream. Like I see these famous people. I see they're famous, they're rich, they're beyond, and the devil helps them. I'm willing to sell my soul to the devil if that's what it takes to finally just get to where I want to be and escape all of this. And I remember sitting in my room saying, I'm willing to sell my soul to the devil, and I'm done, and I'm willing to make this commitment moving forward. And stuff started happening, man. I started meeting people that wanted to get me into the music industry. Started meeting people that would give me advice. Hey, dude, if you really want to get in, you come to Hollywood during the week. That's when all the big names are there. They don't come on the weekends. They're there during the week. You want business? That's when you come. That's when you meet these people. Started following horoscopes that were telling me I was going to be famous on my 21st birthday. Things began to manifest where it was looking like I was actually going to put out some music and be famous, and I'm meeting these people that are all coming together, and they're going to help me be famous and get to the top. And it was happening. It was happening. And I thought it was it. Like, I thought it was coming. I was literally reading my horoscopes, telling me on my 21st birthday, that's it. You're going to be famous. You're going to make it to the top, and that's it. While all these manifestations of me meeting people are happening, it's crazy. It's crazy. And 21st birthday comes. It does not happen. And for the first time in my life, I realized that I'm going to hell. Okay? Because for me, dabbling into the occult and being so obsessed with, these superstars that sell their souls to get to the top, I believed this so much. And the manifestations just kind of confirmed that. And for the first time in my life, I realized I've been deceived. I said I hated God. I said I was willing to sell my soul to go to the other side, and I thought that was it. I thought I was done, that there was no forgiveness for me, there was no path for me, there was no redemption for me, there was no hope for me. I thought that was it. Like, how do you go back from that, If you're someone that doesn't understand the gospel, how do you go back from willing to sell your soul to the devil? How do you go back from that? Well, that's where the gospel comes in. Things got worse. Depression got worse for about 6 months. The oppression got worse till one day I used to work for Enterprise Rent-A-Car. And I woke up this one day just with tears, and like my mom's shaking her, she knows. She's heard this story so many times. And I remember waking up with tears in my eyes, just depressed, out of my mind, thinking that if I die right now, I'm going straight to hell. Straight to hell. And I remember just waking up with tears in my eyes, just saying, God, if there's anything, like any hope, if there's any hope, please, I need you, because I cannot go another day. You know that psalm where it says, I wake up crying, I go to bed crying, just tears constantly in my eyes? That's the only way I could describe how I was living my life, in total depression. And I remember waking up and I asked God, please, if there's any hope for me, I need it now, right? And so I went to work at Enterprise, and I had to go pick up a client. And I pick up this client, and he starts asking me all these questions. He's like, so, how are you feeling? How are you doing? How's life? And I start opening up to him, talking to him for like 2.5 hours. I got in trouble at work. They're like, where are you? And this guy's asking me about my life, what's going on, and he just asks me, well, like, do you want Jesus? Do you want Jesus? Like, has anyone ever asked you that? I was like, well, I think so. I don't think he could forgive me. I think he kind of might be a little mad at me right now because of what I've done. And he's like, just consider it. Just consider it. And he prayed over me, and then I went back to the office, and this was a Wednesday night. It was February 1st, 2012. And I went back home that night, and instead of going to the gym, I decided, I don't know if you've been to Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills, right?
Oh, yeah.
Across the streets to LA Fitness?
Yeah.
Okay, that was my house of worship.
Yeah.
Instead of going to the gym that night, just something in me, which now I know is the Holy Spirit, was just telling me to just go to that church, just go to that church, go to that church. And it wouldn't let me, it was like harassing me almost. Like, go to the church, go, just go, just go. And I show up to the church, and it was a communion night. And I'm not familiar with communion. Everyone's worshiping. There's no pastor coming out. There's no message coming out. This is all on the same day, And I'm sitting there wondering what the heck I'm doing here. There's no pastor. There's no message. Everyone's just singing with their hands up, and I'm about to leave. And I'll never forget it, man. I'll never forget it. Jack comes out and shuts down the worship service, and it's like dark. And he comes out, and he says, in the Old Testament, when they would sprinkle the blood on the mercy seat, that would signify the sacrifice and the forgiveness for the sins of the people for a time. And he says Jesus is the fulfillment of that. Because of his sacrifice on the cross, he shed his blood, and his blood is the mercy seat and is sprinkled on the mercy seat of God. And his blood is the forgiveness for all sins. And wherever you're at in your life, wherever you need, no matter how far you've gone, this is the gospel message for you, and you can be forgiven. And that night, that was when I heard the gospel. And I received it, and the first thing I did was call my mom. When I went out, like, I'm a Christian now, I'm saved, I'm forgiven, God's got something for me, and she'll tell you. It was just like, my mind was changed, my heart was changed. It's like life was put inside of me. The only way that I could describe it is like a new creation. Like, you are born again. Like, I just am not the same person. So,
had you ever gone to mom before and said, "Oh, I'm going to get my life on track. Oh no, I'm going to do better this time," and then fallen back into your old ways?
Constantly, because we were around a lot of religion, but it's not until you have a personal encounter with the gospel and make that independent decision, will you be born again?
When he called you mom, did you believe him? Yeah. There was something different, huh? Yeah. It's awesome.
She'll tell you. I'm telling you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
For me, same kind of deal, back and forth. I'll do good, and on my own strength, try to fix myself, And I finally gave myself to the Lord. I went home, and my mom knew right away. She was the one knew. And literally, people saw me, and I looked different. It was such a radical transformation, like physically looked different. People didn't even recognize me. It's pretty cool when the Lord gets a hold of your life, and it's neat to see what God's done through you. I mean, you have an amazing testimony. Now you've got a wife, you're looking forward to kids in the future, and you're working for doing stuff with Turning Point Faith, Turning Point USA. We're happy to be a part of Turning Point. Pastor Jake's the one that's been connecting us in with that. Of course, we all love Charlie Kirk and everything that he does. But Pastor Jake, talk to us real quick, because we want everybody to know what we're doing with Turning Point and kind of the reason we're connected there.
Yeah, so we're connected with Turning Point, and kind of the goal with all of it is to take our faith and put some action behind it. That's really the goal behind it, right? And we want to do that by not only engaging our church here at 412 Temecula Valley, but our whole community. So the whole goal of this is to bring people in like Drew, bring other people in from Turning Point, do some classes through them, do a variety of stuff where we can equip our entire faith community, the church in our valley, to get engaged with the things happening in our culture, to get engaged in our community, get engaged in local politics, get engaged in something. Take your faith and do something with it. And that's really the goal behind all of it, is putting some action to your faith. And we want to do that in our entire community. So that's really the goal with Turning Point Faith.
And so our first interaction now with Turning Point Faith is with you. So we're happy to have you out tonight.
Well, way to kick it off with the gospel, man.
Yeah,
That's how it should be.
It's how it should be.
I think one of the awesome things, too, is to see somebody that has such a powerful testimony and has now put his faith into action, has done exactly what Turning Point Faith is all about, and I commend you for that, and that's awesome, and I hope that serves as an example to the rest of us that, we might be in that same situation where somebody's held by such a demonic power, but God can deliver you from that. And beyond that, God wants to use you mightily in our culture, just like he's used Drew and uses many of you guys. But that's really what this is all about, is equipping us to do something with our faith and be effective with it.
I want to talk to you some more about some current events, things that are going on right now. I want to maybe as the Lord has shown me, we can talk about the spiritual battle that we're in and what's going on in these current events. Before we get into some of these more current things, do you have anything you want to tell us about Turning Point Faith?
Yeah, I just encourage people to put faith into action, the values, the biblical principles that we all live, we're commanded to do that, not just because, Turning Point is saying you should, or even a pastor is saying you should, because faith without works is dead. We are called to be light. We are called to be light, and that has to be active, especially in the times we are right now. So I encourage people, whether it's with Turning Point or whether it's just locally here, just activate wherever God has called you to be. And I promise you, God will use you if you are faithful. Not perfect, if you are faithful. God will use you no matter where you are. I see so many different people in this room, different age ranges, whether you're young, whether you're older, whatever. It doesn't matter. God is not done with you. You're not used up, you're not washed up, you're not irrelevant because you're older, you're not too young to get engaged because there's some older things going on. It's just God can do anything, and I'm sitting here to tell you that because I've experienced it in my own life. I do not deserve to be in any of this stuff. You guys just heard what I was involved in, and to know where I am now on the level that God has brought me right now, I'm at a loss of words. I really am. So I encourage you guys to find wherever that is for you in your path as well.
Yeah, we need to be the light. We are. If you're here today and you're a Spirit-filled, Bible-believing Christian, you are two things. Whether you recognize it or not, you are two things. Jesus said you are the salt of the earth and you are the light of the world. And I've watched over the last several decades, I've been in ministry a long time, and I've watched the church, not this church or any particular church, but the church as a whole in America. I've watched them veer so far away from what Jesus' intent is with salt and light. And so many people will say, well, salt is, it creates a thirst, and so, it adds flavor. And, we as Christians, we should add flavor to the earth and, get people thirsty. And I get that. And they'll say, oh, light is attractive. We should be attracting people to the Lord. And I get that. There should be something about our lives that people go, hey, I want that. I want your kind of marriage. I want kids like yours. I want to do my finances the way you're doing that. That looks good. However, light is a revealing agent. It reveals what's in the darkness. And you talked about exposing it. Ephesians talks about that. We're not supposed to just talk about these things. We're certainly not supposed to be involved in them. Rather, we're supposed to expose it And that is what you do. And I think we as Christians, we're so nervous to expose these things because we don't want people to call us a bigot or a racist or a homophobe or a xenophobe or any of those words the left likes to use.
I always tell the church, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, they all had their problems with Jesus, right? They viewed him as someone that was a threat to their religious establishment. But Rome viewed Jesus as an insurrectionist. They did. Rome didn't care that Jesus had a Jewish following. They didn't care because he was teaching things that, were kind of getting the Jews stirred up. They did care because they viewed him as an insurrectionist, because he did gain a following and he was pulling people away from the Roman state. And they viewed him as an insurrectionist, not because he was an insurrectionist. Does this sound familiar to you? These words I'm using? Insurrectionist, a threat to the state. They viewed Jesus that way because technically he was. He's the Son of God. And the stuff that he's teaching is going to pull people away from the established state. And that's why when you dare to step forward in this sphere, you really want to do something with your life, bro? I mean, you follow Jesus and you will quickly find out whether you're a coward or not. I'll tell you that right now. Because this world will eat you alive. I've seen it. I've seen grifters try and get into this thing. I've seen grifters try and use the name of Jesus. They try and act religious. They think they're tough. I've seen people try and walk into this and they get eaten alive. You'll find out real quick. One, if you're called to this, and number two, if you're, really tough or not. I'm not saying that I am. I'm just saying I know I'm called to this. That's the only way I could survive. What I'm saying is the further we go down this path, the further we follow the principles of Christ and the Bible, as we engage and push back on this totalitarian, satanic, global regime that is literally falling and descending upon the United States of America, you will be called an insurrectionist. You will be called a domestic terrorist. You will be called all of these things. And what did Jesus say? They hated me, they're going to hate you more.
They were concerned about the kingdom that his followers were talking about, this kingdom he was going to establish here on earth. And we know from history and from the Word of God, he didn't establish the kingdom here on earth at that time, but he's coming back. And when he comes back, that kingdom's going to go on for 1,000 years. So we're expecting that to happen. And all the signs that we were told to look for are happening. And a lot of pastors won't talk about it. Pastor Jake, you talk about it. And that's a lot of pastors that are youth pastors, they won't touch prophecy.
Yeah, I think it's so important because if you define what prophecy is, what would your definition of prophecy be?
Well, there's two definitions, but in the context of what we're talking about, prophecy is the things that God has foretold, he has written down, and given us things that we're supposed to look for in advance, things that are going to happen that we can take to the bank. We know that he said it'll happen, so it will happen.
Okay, so we have things that God said, these are going to happen, right? If you're somebody standing at a pulpit sharing God's word, you're not talking about the things that God said, these are going to happen, well, what exactly are you talking about? What exactly, are you giving a message that's just making kids feel good? They come to play games, and it's like, oh, let's just have fun, and I want you to be the best version of you can be, and I want you to feel good about yourself and the life that you're living. You're on the right track. Keep on going and doing exactly what you're doing. That's not it. There's so much more to God's word. There's so much that we are told to be looking for, and we're told very specifically to look for it. Well, if you don't look for it, if your eyes aren't open for it, then how are you supposed to look for it? How are you supposed to do what God's called you to do? And it's so important. And that's what I've been what's kind of lit a fire for me is okay, prophecy is so incredibly important. Why aren't more groups talking about it? Why aren't more churches talking about it by and large? And that's unfortunate to see.
Right. The signs that God gave us to look for are happening all around us. Worldwide sicknesses happening all around us. Lawlessness abounding. We're living in a time where lawlessness is abounding. We look at the rise and fall of the great empires of man, and we see that we're coming to the end of the great image in Daniel chapter 2, the end of these empires of man. And there's a common thread when you see, the Babylonians, Medo-Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, you see the end of each of those empires. There was a common thread in every single one of them. And what was that common thread? It was when adult sexual perversion starts to be forced on the children. That is the common thread in the fall of every single one of them. And what are we seeing right now? We're seeing on a global scale, like never before, adult sexual perversion being forced upon the children. We're seeing lawlessness. We're seeing all the things God told us to look for. So I want to talk about some of these things because you're involved in this in your show that you do, Frontlines, with Drew Hernandez. You talk about all these current things that are going on. We saw a shooting that took place. Do you want to tell us your take on the shooting? The most recent, well, not the one in LA today.
Uvalde.
Yeah, but the Uvalde one.
Yeah, it was a horrific situation. I was covering the southern border crisis last week, and then the shooting took place. So we went to the scene to start covering what was going on. And it's a horrible situation. It's a devastating, evil situation. The individual that decided to shoot up an elementary school and slaughter children is evil. Is evil. Period. Evil. There's no excuse for that. There's no explanation for that other than that this individual was evil, lost his mind, and decided to do this and kill 2 teachers in the process. But what disgusted me as well was the politicization that took place almost immediately from the far left. I showed up on the scene, you guys, and I'm checking on Twitter, and the kids were still dead in the elementary school. And LeBron James, AOC, all of these leftists immediately started to politicize these children before they were even taken out of the school, all over social media. Okay? This is where we are. This is where we are. And that same day, the next day, that night, parents were going to this event center and they were finding out whether their child was killed or not. At around midnight, that's when they started to find out, when they were identifying some of the kids, if they could. The next day, the governor held a press conference and decided to brief the community in the United States of America, Governor Greg Abbott of Texas. And in the middle of his press conference, his political opponent, Beto O'Rourke, decided to show up and crash it and start screaming and pointing the finger at Abbott and blaming him and saying the blood's on your hands while there's parents in the room. And I want you guys to know this. At that point, when Beto did that, I was in the city. When he did that, there were still parents that haven't identified whether their kid was killed or not. And this guy is in Uvalde, down the street, politicizing dead children. That is evil. It's evil. This guy's evil, okay? That is not a politician. That is a wolf. That is a bloodthirsty wolf that is willing to come into your community and stand on the graves of dead kids to get votes. That's what you're dealing with right now. That's what you're dealing with right now. This is who these people are. Yes, they slaughter babies. They kill babies. They're willing to slaughter them inside and outside of the womb. They want to mutilate the genitals of little kids. They want trans kids, which aren't real. They want to make them. They want to engineer trans kids. They want the youth to understand that that's real when it's not real. They want to groom your children. They oppose anti-grooming laws in Florida. Anti-grooming laws. They oppose this. It's not a don't say gay bill in Florida. It's a don't rape kids bill, and they oppose it. I'm going to tell you this right now, especially for the youth. Like, hear me. You are dealing with people that want to rape you. Do you understand that? Do you understand that you are dealing with politicians that want the ability to groom you through the education system? Would there be any one of you that would feel comfortable being in the room with a pedophile alone? No. You want to know how they do this? They do it through indoctrination. They do it through their sick agendas and teachings, K through 12. They pump it down into your mind. They get some woke teacher that appears to be your friend because they've got colored hair or whatever. And then before you know it, this person is depraved. They start texting you, pretending to be your friend. Oh, it's an LGBTQ person. They love me. They're my friend. Then they start sexting you. At that point, you think it's normal because it's free. It's Pride Month. This is happening. You guys understand this in the United States. You know how many stories I've covered of groomers, K through 12, targeting kids through Snapchat, targeting kids through TikTok, Instagram, you name it, getting their phone numbers, just being a mentor at the LGBTQ club after school, then they turn around and rape the kid? You might think it's normal. There might be young people, there might be young guys in this room or young girls like, hey, I just want to get with an older person. Hell yeah. Yeah, dude. Props, right? You understand that's how it works, right? You understand that a groomer and a rapist wants you to think that way? That it's normal? Watch out, parents. You should be like hawks right now.
Well, I tell you this, my kids are grown. You're going to have kids one day. There's no way I would put my kids in a public school. There's just no way I would do that. You know, I think about the story of the mom down there at Uvalde who got put in handcuffs for trying to enter the school campus. Did you know about that?
Yeah, there was... So the story has come out that the active shooter, shot his grandmother in the face, and then he took a truck, crashed it behind the elementary school, got out of the truck, took his weapons, bum rushed the school, started shooting around the school, shot at a funeral nearby, and then made his way through a hallway, was knocking on certain doors. I interviewed a grandmother, and the grandmother gave me her granddaughter's eyewitness testimony. And she could hear the shooter knocking on doors, trying to open certain doors to find one that was open. And when he found one, he said, "What do I have here?" And he started massacring the children. And while this was all happening, parents were trying to get in. It's a small town. It's a really small town. Everyone knows each other. The distance between where the grandmother lives and where the psychopath lived to the elementary school is like a 3-minute walk. And the parents just got to the school. They were trying to get into the school. The police weren't letting him in there. They arrested some of the parents. They were saying we didn't want more people to die. But now it's come out that the school district police chief on site told the police to stand down because he thought it was a barricade situation. There were little kids inside of the elementary school calling 911 with other dead kids around them. It's a horrifying situation, and the parents were trying to get in there because they knew that their kids were still in there and they might possibly be alive. The police messed up. There's no excuse. There's no excuse. It's just a horrible situation. It shouldn't have happened, but what I will say is this, is you cannot blame the gun, because a gun does not wake up one day and decide to massacre 19 children and 2 teachers. An evil human being decides to do that because it was a firearm that shot this individual. It took a good guy with a gun to kill a bad guy with a gun to stop a horrific situation.
Yeah.
And I'll also say this too, is I interviewed, some of the local residents, and one of the individuals I interviewed, he lived right on the corner and he saw the shooter rushing the school and he heard the gunshots. And you know what he told me his first instinct was? It wasn't even to call the cops. You know what it was?
Don't tell me it was to film.
No.
Okay, good.
It was to grab a gun.
Good.
And he said, my first instinct, because he was out getting his mail down the street, was to run back to my house, grab my gun to go kill this bad guy with a gun. But he wasn't able to make it in time because that's when the cops showed up and he didn't want to show up with a firearm and get shot for it. So it's interesting that in the midst of a mass shooting situation, the human instinct is to grab a gun to kill the bad guy, not even call the cops. Just think about that. Just think about that.
Well, when you get a fire extinguisher and the fire starts, usually a good idea to try to put it out yourself real quick.
Yeah.
You confronted Beto.
I sure did, because he's a beta.
So, for those of you that don't know what a beta is, it's a weak, girly excuse for a man. You confronted him. We got some video footage. Let's take a look.
Thank you, brother.
Hey, Beto, how do you feel exploiting dead kids? How do you feel exploiting dead kids, Beto? Do you care? The parents in Uvalde said they didn't want you there. The parents in Uvalde said they didn't want you there, Beto. What do you say to the parents I talked to yesterday in Uvalde that said they didn't want you there? They didn't want you to do that, Beto. They didn't want you to exploit dead kids, Beto. Why are you exploiting dead kids, Beto? Beta! What kind of beta exploits dead children, Beta? Beta!
Don't touch me. Do not touch me.
I'm not.
Dude, you are. You're literally in my face.
You guys are...
When I showed that clip to my mom, she was like, I almost went mama bear on them. I wasn't even there. But that's what we have to do to these people. We have to confront them. You can't just show up into a town and exploit dead children. Who does that?
Right.
Evil people do.
A lot of people don't want to confront that, though, huh, Jake?
Yeah, I would say a lot of people don't. Well, so for you, and this is kind of a question more geared towards youth that are coming up in age, right? They're close to adulthood. You mentioned it earlier, talking about things going on in the public school system. So for them, like, what advice would you give to do something like that, where it's like, hey, I recognize that something's bad. I recognize that I need to do something. Where do they start where it's like, okay, it's time to engage these people. It's time to engage the school. It's time to engage whoever's doing something that they recognize is contrary to what they would like. Where do they start with that?
Yeah, I would say in the confines of what the school allows you to do. If you want to start a club, obviously Turning Point has their chapters as well. I would put on events. I would put on events at lunch. I'm just thinking if I was in high school, what I would do right now.
I'd have so much fun if I was in high school.
I would challenge these people.
Yeah.
I would put on debates. I would grab whoever's the most vocal LGBTQ woke whatever in the school, and I would go one-on-one with them on a debate. Air it on social media. I'd confront them. I would do men on the street at my school. There's so much I would do, man. I just would engage at the level that I can engage with the tools that I have, within the confines of the rules and the law, obviously, right? But I think right now in this social media age, you have to grab people's attention with doing stuff like that. You know, I wasn't disrespectful. I wasn't a violent threat. I was just calling out a guy that needed to be called out, you know? I mean, I don't know. You really want me to answer this question? Are you sure?
Yeah.
I would challenge my principal. I would challenge everyone that is attempting to indoctrinate me.
Yeah.
I would put on rallies, whether it's at the school or outside of the school. I would make my voice so loud against these things. That's what I would be doing right now. Whether it's like a rally at my school, whether it's some kind of debate, I would challenge these people to their face. Peacefully. I'm not saying get violent. I'm just saying I would really question some of these people on a huge, huge scale. And I think I would like to see that. I would love to see high school students do stuff like that, man. But that's why are you sure you want me to answer that question, you know?
So you're saying it takes more than a beta to call it a beta?
Yeah.
Is that what it is? All right.
Yeah,
all
man,
right.
you got to get bold.
I think we're living in a time where, you know, there's this call out to demasculinize men. Where they're saying, oh, you know, you can't go work out. Your testosterone's going to get too high of a level. No, oh, God forbid, you might become a Republican. You know, or there's all these things that, you know, where it's like, oh, you can't have too much testosterone. You can't have too much testosterone. Well, I think it takes a little bit of courage, and that might come from a little bit of testosterone to call somebody out. And I think that's a good example that you've given there to other people, where it's like, dude, if you've got a belief in something, where you have the conviction, like you said earlier, that something is right, that something is true, it's time to have some courage and take a real stand for it. And I think you've been a great example of that.
Yeah, I think we need to be confronting these things head on. There was a story that came out in North Carolina elementary school. Well, let's take a look at the video, and then I'll tell you my point in this.
A North Carolina elementary school has confiscated a set of LGBTQ-themed flashcards that a teacher was using in her pre-K classroom. And one of the flashcards, these were to teach colors, depicted a pregnant man. Yes, the color white. You've got a little couple there with a pregnant man. However, the principal of the school verified that the cards were being used only to teach colors, as I mentioned, which is an approved curriculum at the school.
Okay. So we're going to use a pregnant man to teach. Who are they teaching colors to? Think about this. What is the age group that they're teaching colors to? It's not 12th graders. We're talking about kindergartners here. If you're talking about colors, and they're using that kind of nonsense to teach the kids, and what ended up happening was parents went and confronted the school, and they ended up removing this stuff and not allowing it. And this is what people need to do, is confront these things head on. We need to be the light that exposes. Salt stings a little bit, but guess what? It kills bacteria. Salt is a preservative. We are supposed to be preserving this culture that we're around. We're supposed to preserve it. And what's happened with the church? The church, like, well, I just want to add flavor to the conversation. I want to attract. It's like, you're a weak excuse for a Christian if that's all you want to do as the salt and the light. And I do firmly believe Jesus is coming back. And some people are like, well, if you believe he's coming back, why are you trying to work so hard? If he's coming back, what's the point? The point is, he told me to be the salt and the light. He didn't say be the salt and light till you think it's close and then go ahead and sit on the couch.
Yeah, it's like, I'm just going to let these people rape my kids and wait for Jesus to come back. Like, no.
That doesn't make any sense at all.
You don't remove morality for the sake of Jesus coming back, and you use that as an excuse to do nothing while the federal government begins to target and groom your kids. You don't do that. Nobody, Christian or not. Who in the church decided to come out and say that you just sit back and put your head in the sand and do nothing as these people come after you and your children? At what point do you start to stand up and say, no, enough is enough. I'm not going to let these people target me and my family any longer, whether Jesus comes back or not. Can you imagine? You know how foolish that sounds? You know how foolish it sounds to sit here and let these people do this to our communities and our children and our families? Can you imagine if the rapture happens right now and you have some teacher raping your child and you get raptured and you see Jesus and he tells you, hey, by the way, your kid was getting raped? That's the reality of this stuff, because I just don't understand how Christians get to this point and they're just like, oh, I'm just going to sit here and wait for Jesus to come back while my family gets targeted by evil. And listen, I'm sorry. My mom will tell you, I gotta relax. You know, I'm not yelling at you. I've seen some stuff, you know, and it just, there's something inside of me that has to be this way because we're living in some dangerous times.
Yeah. Well, we're living in a time where to engage in these things, you have some groups of Christians that say, you're getting so political, you shouldn't get involved in these things. Stop talking about this stuff. Stop engaging in these things. Just preach the gospel. And I'm sick and tired of hearing that.
It's easy
sick and tired of hearing that. You know, the gospel, part of the gospel message is people are sinners. That's part of the gospel message. You are in need of a savior because you have messed stuff up. And if you don't get that savior, you're going to hell. You know, that's part of the gospel message. Thank God he sent his son to live the life none of us could live. But we have to engage, we have to do something. And we're living in a time where people are so ignorant to the issues that are plaguing our culture. They're ignorant. They have no clue what's going on. To the point where we're dealing with abortion right now. We're looking at what's going to likely happen with our Supreme Court and overturning Roe v. Wade. And people don't even know what Roe versus Wade is. Mm-hmm. How many of you saw the Jimmy Kimmel thing? Anybody see that? I don't watch Jimmy Kimmel, but I heard about it. Anybody? Okay, take a look at this man on the street type thing with Jimmy Kimmel.
This weekend was the big MMA heavyweight fight, Roe versus Wade. Describe that fight for us.
Oh man, Wade, he was talking all type of stuff, you know what I mean? Like he's something, he wasn't nothing. He got it right in the kisser, he's out.
Who did you like, Wade or Roe?
Go for Wade. Yeah, definitely.
You like Wade?
Yeah. Doesn't care about if he's gonna get knocked out, he just goes in, he's ruthless.
Who'd you watch that fight with?
You know, I was actually by myself.
Did you watch it with any women?
The fight?
Yeah.
Actually there was a woman there, yeah, okay.
What did she think of the fight, Roe versus Wade?
Well, she wasn't as impressed. She was mostly on her phone on Instagram.
People are calling the fight the Ruckus in the Uteruckus. You think it lived up to that name?
The Ruckus and the Uteruckus? Definitely, you know. I like the ring to it too.
I mean, this like you see this, and of course, I mean, this goes on and on. The whole segment went for like 5 minutes, and I see that, and of course, there's a comedic value to it, or they wouldn't be showing it. They're going to try to get people to laugh. But when I see this, my heart breaks because we live in a culture that these guys have no clue. And how are we supposed to affect change in a dark and dying culture if people are ignorant to these things? And how are Christians supposed to know how to answer these things if the pastors don't talk about them?
It reminds me of in 1 John where it says that the world is under the sway of the wicked one. That's what that video is. Imagine being in a place where you don't even understand that babies are being slaughtered by the millions in your own country under a policy. That's what that means. That's what I see when I see videos like that, is people just blind to murder. Like, think about that. Like, only the devil could achieve something like that. Get people to believe he doesn't exist, but get people celebrating and praising and blind to murder of infants, infanticide. That's crazy, like when you really think about how strategic and how effective the devil really is. Because when you watch a video like that, I think for me, I don't know about you guys, but for me, when I see that, that's what I'm thinking when I'm watching that, is being so blind to something so serious. You know, like I said, Christian or not, it's just blind to it, you know?
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I've been to some of these, obviously I cover protests, but one of the last one was at the Arizona State Capitol, and the people were just losing their minds. And, you know, you might think that, okay, pro-choice, a woman should be able to do what she needs to do if it's a serious situation, but some of these people are coming out and they're waving signs saying that a fetus equals a good snack. Yep. You think I'm lying? Go to my Twitter. These are who these people are, man. These open Satanists, just waving with their signs. You know, fetuses are good snacks. I mean, talk about Romans 1. You know,
Yeah.
Total
Yeah.
depravity. You know, that's what you're living under right now, which is a judgment, by the way, because the society willfully rejected and suppressed the truth.
Yeah, talk about suppressing the truth, the lie that is transgenderism, and we see this push right now for transgenderism, especially among the youth. We've seen Children's Hospital in the state of California is pushing very heavily to have what they call wellness centers on campuses, school campuses, government-ran school campuses, where they'll do all sorts of stuff, but it's just wicked. They'll give transgender therapies on campus without the parents' knowledge or consent. This is what Children's Hospital wants to do to our kids. And it's a lie. There are only two genders, and we look what's happening in our own state. Look in California, San Francisco. The mayor in San Francisco has this whole idea that she wants to spend $6.5 million to end homelessness for transgender individuals in 5 years. So spend money to rent housing for transgender individuals that are on the street. Now, when I hear that, I think that is discrimination. You're discriminating against a homeless person that's not transgender. And part of this amount of money they want to put together is also for behavioral science health services for transgender. In other words, they want to be able to provide the sex changes for them. That's what that is. So they want to spend our tax dollars to do this, and it's just wicked. And it's not just California.
And notice how they don't put an age limit in it.
Right.
See that? See how that works? See how they keep it vague? So if they want to bring kids into it, they want to mutilate the genitals of your kids, the state wants to get a hold of them. If your child wants to come out and identify as trans and get their genitals mutilated, the state leaves it open so that they could just come and do it without parental consent. It's rape. It's rape. It's the state raping kids. But that's why they leave it open. So they can do stuff like it's perversion. I don't know what else. I don't have the words to really describe what this stuff really is. Like, obviously, it's discrimination. Imagine if that policy was, we're only going to help white people. Riots, right? But no, it's their agenda. They're actually the real racists. You take a look at the history of the Democrat Party and who these people are. We all know this by now, right? But they're continuing with their discrimination in the way that they do things, and it's an attack on God's image. When you take a look at the trans agenda, the transhuman agenda, it's an attack on the image of God. We are created, whether you believe in God or not, we are created in the image of God, male and female. So this transgender, transhumanism is an attack on the very image of God to get you to botch the way that God made you and designed you inside of the womb. And people need to kind of take a look at how these are doctrines of demons. It's what they are. We were warned of these things, these doctrines of demons that invade the youth, that invade our culture, that are an attack on God's image to mutilate who you are. Surgically, unnaturally, unhuman. It's gross. And then they take it to children. But at the end of the day, this is an attack on the image of God further, and it's being praised, it's being funded, it's being championed, it's being made normal in our country. And I think it's a testament to how far we've drifted away. I really do think it is.
Yeah, you talked earlier in the beginning, you talked about the narratives that are being pushed, even on Fox News, it's all over the place. And I was watching this morning, I had Fox News on, my wife and I were watching, and they were referring, what's his name, the swimmer? Leah Thomas? Yeah. We were watching them, and they were referring to him as a woman, as though this is just how it is, and this is on Fox News.
Well, didn't they hire Caitlyn Jenner as a contributor?
Right. Yeah.
Fox hired Caitlyn Jenner as a contributor.
Still calling him Bruce.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? I use the names so it clicks.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Fox hired Caitlyn Jenner? I'm just saying, man. I don't know if any of you agree with the trans agenda, but I don't.
No, I mean it is, like you said, it's a direct attack on the image of God. I say what's happening, and I hope even our younger generation will listen to this, is you can go all the way back to the